What exactly is a wetland? How do you know if you're living in one? A wetland is an area where water covers the ground or is at or near the surface of the ground for different times throughout the year, especially during the season when plant life is growing. This is called the growing season. But don't get me wrong, wetlands do not have to have water in them all the time in order to be a wetland. So, what exactly makes a wetland if it doesn't have to have water in it all year? Well, there are three things that scientists look for when deciding whether a wetland is a wetland. The first is called wetland hydrology. Hydrology is just another word for water. Wetland hydrology is a sign or an indicator that the site is flooded or that the soil is filled with water, or is saturated for a certain percentage of the year. Hydrology can look like standing water, like a puddle, a small pond, or a swamp, for example. If water is invisible, there are other ways wetland scientists can show that there is wetland hydrology. Scientists will dig a hole in the ground to see if there's any water, like when you go to the beach and dig a hole in the sand. Usually the water rises in the hole. In a wetland, this shows scientists that the ground is wet underneath the surface. In wetland terms, this is called water table. The water table shows that a site might be a wetland. Other signs that show wetland hydrology are water-stained leaves that appear dark or marks on trees that the water leaves behind, like a water stain. These are a few of the different indicators that show wetland hydrology, especially in drier seasons that have had very little rain. In addition to hydrology, wetlands also must have hydric soil. This is our second indicator of a wetland. Hydric soils are soils that are used to being inundated with water and therefore have a low oxygen content. This is also known as being anoxic. Because of this low oxygen content, there is very little decay of organic matter. So elements like iron and manganese form distinct color patterns in the soil called redoxomorphic features. These features give soils a bluish-gray coloration or a red or yellow color scheme, which is a strong sign of hydrology being present. Hydric soils can also smell like hydrogen sulfide when they're very wet. Hydrogen sulfide smells like rotten eggs, which is one way to determine if the soil is hydric. And most importantly, hydric soils support specialized plant species that can survive in very wet conditions. And that leads us to our third wetland indicator, hydrophytic vegetation. Hydrophytic vegetation is another way of saying water-loving plants. Wetlands support a variety of plants like oak trees, ash trees, ferns, and cattails. Plants that are especially adapted to living and growing in water are called hydrophytes. If you've ever seen water lilies floating on the top of a pond or cypress trees growing straight out of a marsh, you've seen a hydrophyte. These plants have unique adaptations that allow them to grow in the water and in turn support other wildlife by providing critical habitat. So let's review. How can you tell if you're in a wetland? A wetland must show signs of hydrology, signs of hydric soil, and signs of hydrophytic plant life. It might seem like a puzzle, but all the pieces do come together. Now that we know what a wetland is, let's look at different types of wetlands. North Carolina is home to over 4.2 million acres of wetlands, which covers about 14% of the state's land area. Moving across the state from west to east, we transition from the mountains to the Piedmont and finally the coastal plain. Because of these three distinct ecoregions, North Carolina is home to many different types of wetlands. In the mountains, you can find mountain bogs, which are typically found at the base of the mountains with very acidic soil. Bogs get most of their water from rain or from snow. Because of their acidic soil, they only support very hardy plants like cranberries or pitcher plants. In the Piedmont region, you will often find forested wetlands like swamps. Swamps are dominated by woody plants, primarily trees, shrubs, and woody vines. Swamps are usually characterized by slow-moving or standing water, and they help store floodwater and recycle nutrients in the watershed. In the coastal plain, you'll find tidal marshes that can be fresh, saltwater, or a mix of both called brackish water. Tidal marshes play an important role in protecting our coastline and are dominated by rushes and grasses, providing important nursery habitat for marine animals. One unique landform in North Carolina is the Carolina Bay, named for the bay trees that grow here. Carolina bays support great biodiversity and are home to several different types of wetlands like precosins. Precosins are a unique type of bog wetland that are mainly found in the southeastern United States along the coastal plain. Precosins typically do not have any standing water, but their soils remain saturated for most of the year. Precosins are found in flat upland areas far away from streams, so like bogs, they are fed mostly by rainwater. These unique habitats have a spongy peat bed and provide valuable habitat for forest critters. While there are many different types of wetlands in North Carolina, all wetlands have three things in common: hydrology, hydric soil, and hydrophytic plants. Now that you know what a wetland is, try to find one near you. Are you living in a swamp and you don't even know it? This video is made possible through the Swamp School's EcoRise Corporate Partners Program, where science, business, and education come together to protect our waters. Visit swampschool.org/sponsor to learn how your company can help.